All right, Ty. We appear to be live.
Man,
Wow.
what is up with these games today, man?
It's great. I'm very tired, and I'm on the West Coast. But I think I'm not tired because I was up all night partying last night or I was doing exhausting things today. I'm emotionally spent from Michigan, TCU, and Georgia, Ohio State. So I guess I'm going to let you start this.
Okay.
Georgia, 42, Ohio State, 41. The first time that we've had a 14-point fourth quarter comeback
Yeah.
In a situation like this. So what were your takeaways from start to finish, and what were the little things that became big, the big things that ultimately didn't matter? What's your takeaway?
My takeaway is that there was a lot of similarity. There were a lot of parallels to the first game.
Sure.
Right? In the first game between Michigan and TCU, we saw TCU take Michigan out of its game early.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that again in the second game. We saw Ohio State take Georgia out of its game relatively early as well. And I think the big takeaway, at least from the first 2.5, 3 quarters of playoff semifinal number 2, is that the Georgia pass rush wasn't there. It was basically pitch and catch for CJ Stroud. Jalen Carter, all world everything, Jalen Carter was pretty much negated.
It was stonewalled. Yeah.
So Ohio State did a really good job. They game planned well. And for a good chunk of this game, they took Georgia out of their rhythm. And it showed. It showed for a while. I thought for sure Ohio State was going to win this game. But down the stretch, what you saw happen is, Georgia start to figure it out. Progressively figure it out, get a little bit more pressure on CJ Stroud. We've talked ad nauseum. You know this, Dan. I mean, we've talked for maybe 2 years now about CJ Stroud when he put pressure in his face, when he tried to make him improvise, things like that. It wasn't like he made a killer mistake or anything of that nature, but Georgia down the stretch was able to find ways to create pressure and disrupt that Ohio State offense in a way that we hadn't seen in the previous 3 quarters. So that, to some extent, was a bit of a turning point. But ultimately, it was, look, Georgia found the open guys. Georgia was able to turn it over to Stetson Bennett, a guy in whom they have a lot of confidence now, right? If you had said this 2 years ago, everybody would have thought you were crazy. But suddenly, Stetson Bennett is Mr. Poise, and we saw it last year in the second half of the championship game. We saw it this year in a very, very big moment in the fourth quarter where he came to play. There's definitely an element of Ohio State's defense that we need to discuss, what they were doing down the stretch that plays a pretty active role in this plot. But where do I stand? Where I stand is Georgia's the defending champion for a reason. And I'm more than anything just very, very excited that we saw 2 good games, because all too often the narrative after these playoff games is that, oh, great, they were blowouts again. This is a 21-point blowout.
Somebody didn't belong, right? The Michigan State situation, or what Florida State gave up against Oregon, or when Ohio State, same team, got shut out in a bowl game, right? There's always that team where like, oh, they were not
exactly. And so, that kind of pains me as a college football fan. I don't want to see bad games, especially if it's one thing if your team's in it and you're biased and all that, but when you're just watching games for the fun of watching games as a fan, you don't want to see blowouts. And we didn't get them.
Do you see how cool I was not mentioning Notre Dame in blowouts?
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. 2023 Dan, Ty.
Look, I got my old fashioned here. Happy New Year to those of you watching on the East Coast live. Yep.
Your eyes are a little bit chiller than usual. I see
are they
your
chiller?
face a lot. You just got you got a nice chill 23 vibe going to you, and I appreciate it.
This is only the first one, so maybe there'll be more later. I don't think it's hit me yet, but
we don't breathalyze here at Solid Verbal Media, Ty. Do your thing.
No.
Do your thing.
Well, it's just really funny, kind of thematically here, that both games got very drunk in the second half. And
look at that time. Come on.
I'm a pro podcaster. Yeah, this is what I do. So I just think that, just a celebration of college football this evening. I won't play the Jimmy Kimmel soundbite. Nobody wants to hear me play that again. But two fantastic games. Congratulations to Georgia and TCU.
Absolutely. Congratulations. Okay, this game specifically, though. We've talked about a lot of these teams and whether or not they're playoff worthy, later on in the season. Georgia beat Ohio State at Ohio State football, right? We came to understand Georgia as this great offensive line that got better over the course of the season, and Kenny McIntosh is this all-purpose weapon. Kendall Milton when he was healthy and running well, like they were using that to set up Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington, and the receivers when healthy. A.D. Mitchell obviously makes a comeback from his ankle injury and is healthier than he's been in a while. But that's what they're trying to go for. That's what Todd Monken's trying to go for. Ohio State does a good job taking away the run and jumping on Georgia after getting stops, right? They go up by a couple touchdowns, double digits for a good chunk of the middle and the early portion of the game. And Georgia says, okay, we have weapons. Stetson Bennett, he throws the interception, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, are we going to get 2020 Alabama Stetson Bennett, right? That where they go to Tuscaloosa.
Exactly.
Are we going to get the 2021 SEC championship Stetson Bennett, right? Where it's just like, it's hard for Georgia to overcome Stetson Bennett turnovers. And they overcame that specific turnover. And whether it was the blown coverage deep in the second half for the easy-ish touchdown, whether it's the timing route, I mentioned A.D. Mitchell, that an unbelievable timing route touchdown to the back left corner of the end zone, that's a C.J. Stroud pass, right? We look at, I know I speak for myself when I say, I think Stetson Bennett's a really, really good quarterback, but we don't think of him as the singular engine that everything Georgia revolves around. It's defense, it's trench play, it's running, and that they were able to utilize their speed, that Brock Bowers makes that unbelievable conversion, the balance to stay in bounds. It was the athletes, the pass catchers for Georgia, Stetson Bennett staying in it, staying confident. And man, I obviously don't have a dog in this fight, right? I'm an Oregon fan, and I've watched my team lose to both of these teams relatively recently in big moments. But man, do I hate to see a game lost in that way, right? To see the kicker completely overkick it and hook it in the way that Noah Ruggles, a very, very good kicker.
A very good kicker. And it was a 50-yarder, which I'm sure will be overlooked because it was really errant. I mean, it was, when we say wide right, that's not exactly doing it justice. It was just a bad kick. It was a mishit. So you feel awful for the kid. Ohio State had an opportunity to win it. I thought that final drive was executed about as well as you could expect. You always want more yardage, but they at least got themselves into position. CJ Stroud with a really big run late.
CJ Stroud just running the ball, right? Because that's something he's been averse to, that he's like, this is who I am, is a pocket passer. Like I can succeed off platform a little bit, but he takes pride in his ability to quickly break down defenses and dice them up with his arm, and hasn't been that guy who wants to be a dual threat. He wants to be that singular threat. And it was his legs who ultimately put Ohio State in a position to win. Man, just a bajillion moments in this game, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. getting hurt relatively early on. Cade Stover getting hurt relatively early on.
Went to the hospital.
Serious injury. They made a point of saying, like, it must be extremely serious because Cade Stover is, he guts his way through anything and everything. And so, the moment of Kirby Smart calling an unbelievable timeout, seeing the fake punt, the wheels in motion for that. And I really did think it was a masterclass in back and forth college football excellence. And all things considered, with, Ohio State's injuries, with Georgia not looking like themselves these past. I mean, look, they didn't look like themselves on defense against LSU, and they certainly didn't look like themselves generating basically nothing with a pass rush, and just giving up so much through the air early to CJ Stroud. Just a masterclass in adjusting. When we talk about throughout the season, Ty, we're just like, why didn't they adjust? Why did they see what we were all seeing? I think it's probably pretty hard to do on the sideline as the game was going. I thought Kirby Smart and Ryan Day, for the most part, did such a good job. Kirby Smart adjusting, Ryan Day game planning, and still keeping them in it. And it seemed like doing everything he could to keep Ohio State in it.
Interestingly enough, CJ Stroud and Stetson Bennett with identical 23 of 34 lines passing.
Yeah.
A little bit more yardage for Stetson Bennett, 398. I think 348 for CJ Stroud. Georgia's the defending champion for a reason, as I said earlier. And they came to play in this one, especially down the stretch. You know, it's not always the prettiest effort that's going to get you through to the next round, but
Right.
they found a way to get the job done. And Stetson Bennett, I know they said it on the broadcast, but I'll reiterate it here. You couldn't write this script in Hollywood. They wouldn't accept it in Hollywood because it's been such sort of a fairy tale for Stetson Bennett over the last couple seasons. But the way he came into his own last season, the way he has been a steadying force this season, it's admirable. It's admirable, and you know it obviously helps to have the weapons around him. But look, this was the Stetson Bennett show tonight. This was the Stetson Bennett show. This was him willing Georgia to victory. This was Ohio State having an opportunity to win it, obviously missing the kick, but you know, really neither team here can hang their head. I mean, much like the first game that we discussed earlier this evening, both teams left it all out in the field. And again, as fans of college football, that's all you can ask for. You know, especially if you don't have a dog in the fight, you just want to see close games. And we saw two really, really close games. Again, two playoff games decided by a combined 7 points, which is unheard of. That's never happened before in the history of college football. No. At least not in the playoff era of college football, I should say.
No, and it really does also speak when you have teams like this, and obviously, essentially nobody has this luxury, but you have Georgia's best receiver all season long in Ladd McConkey beat up and is basically a non-factor in this game. 2 catches for -1 yards. You have the injuries to Ohio State's receivers. In Cade Stover and Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously Jackson Smith and Jigba was a non-factor all year long for Ohio State. And they could still do what they wanted to do. They didn't take that hit. Now, obviously, getting healthy, Arian Smith has a very good game, and he has the busted coverage touchdown. Having Kenny McIntosh all year is an unbelievable luxury, what he presents. But it's a luxury that basically nobody has in the sport, which is why we talk about depth, which is why we talk about that sort of next blue chip up in the blue chip ratio is they're able to perform at such a high level, even with the top of the top, not necessarily able to play in a moment like this or for the entirety of this game. But yeah, I mean, at a certain point, we're just going to have a Stetson Bennett conversation because he has been excellent for Georgia. And because of his background and his story that he wasn't a heralded recruit, people are going to say, oh, well, look at the players around him. No. Oh, well, look at the talent on defense that puts them in such a good position. All true. But there are other quarterbacks, 5-star quarterbacks, who have similar advantages who do not perform this well.
You could put a lot of quarterbacks on that Georgia team and that they wouldn't play as well. You could play a lot of quarterbacks in that role and they wouldn't do what Stetson Bennett has done. It's been a remarkable run for him. So look, we've got folks watching across Facebook, across Twitter, across Twitch, and of course YouTube. Send in your comments. We've got some time here. We're going to flash them up on the screen.
Sure.
I wanted to cut to this one from Dominic, who I think is very much on the same wavelength as you and I, Dan.
And a stormtrooper.
And he's got the stormtrooper avatar for sure.
Yeah.
But we often talk on our show about college football game shows or college football TV shows.
Sure.
Maybe a little bit of both. Sometimes they're both at the same time. This is a fantastic TV show.
Oh my God.
Fantastic advertisement.
Best day of playoff games. Yeah.
For college football.
It was great because there were so many different elements, right? There's the Ohio State shouldn't have been there. It's Georgia defending champ. It's Michigan. It was a great narrative fest of a day. And everything exceeded the expected narratives, right? That, Michigan does nothing and we're just like, well, they're going to lose this game, not doing things in the red zone and not adjusting. And then they come out in the second half bombing in a good way.
Yeah.
TCU, right? They can't hang with the college football blue bloods in year one of Sonny Dykes. They come out and they're incredible on defense of all things. And then making plays, of course, on offense as well. And then in the Ohio State game, it's Ohio State doesn't have the guts. Ohio State folded against Michigan. And defensively, at least for an opening chunk of this game.
Look good.
Made a ton of plays up. We're hounding Stetson Bennett. We're very active. The linebackers were everywhere. And then Georgia, of course, and we talked about this before, it's just like winning a game in a very un-Kirby-like way, right? Downfield, speed. I mean, they've always had the speed, but like really looking to be aggressive downfield, knowing that the run was not necessarily going to be there consistently, even though Kenny McIntosh ran well early. So it went against type, which made it great.
It did, and especially if you consider what happened to Ohio State when they played Michigan.
Yeah.
So much of the buildup to these playoffs was a conversation around, well, Georgia and Michigan play a very similar style. And if Michigan can do to Ohio State what they did on the ground, surely Georgia can do that as well. This was not a game that was won on the ground. There were plays on the ground.
Sure.
But this is ultimately a battle of two quarterbacks and defenses trying to stop them. And it was not like Georgia diced up Ohio State. I thought they did a good job containing that rushing attack. It was just Stetson Bennett and a couple blown coverages that ultimately got him. Obviously, the kick doesn't help either, but I thought all things considered, they did a pretty good job on the defensive side of the ball. Aaron, who we know is an Ohio State fan.
Yep.
One of our most loyal and ardent verballers over at verballers.com, for those who are interested, says that the Buckeyes were fortunate to even have been in this game, so it's hard to be upset. I think that's a very good attitude, Dan.
I don't know.
I've been where Aaron is. And I feel like that's something I would say to myself if my team lost like this. That is a gut-wrenching loss because they had the opportunity to move through. It was a really bad kick. That's a very helpless place to be as a fan.
I think you need to let yourself be hurt, Ty.
You need to feel it a little bit, right?
I think you need to let yourself be hurt, and you cannot have perspective this quickly after a game. If you are a true fan, you are emotionally unwell, right? That's my attitude. That it's okay to have perspective the morning after you sleep on it, or the week after you've slept on it a few times. But let yourself be hurt. If you're an Ohio State fan, if you're a Michigan fan, these are two fan bases who are very good at letting themselves be hurt and letting it carry into the offseason. Ohio State should have been in this game. USC had an opportunity to get into this game and decided to try to slap Utah into a victory on defense, and it didn't work. And so Utah earned their way out of this. USC earned their way out of this. Ohio State had not a fantastic season, but a very, very good season, and we're sort of right place, right time. I would not have put another team in this game. I think Ohio State was in a better position to be here than Alabama, who they themselves had a very good day against Kansas State. But the story to me is you got to close. You got to close. TCU closed. Georgia closed. They put themselves in position, and Ohio State had opportunities. Ohio State had some bad injury luck, but man, I just come away from this just in awe of the entertainment we got today.
We got good. And by the way, a follow-up here, I posted Aaron's comment.
Yeah.
Saying I feel it. She does.
Okay, good.
It. She does feel it. So Lee says he's watching in Germany, and 6:17 a.m. I've died and come back to life. Go Dawgs. That's an early morning in Germany to watch a game like this. That will get the blood pumping. You don't even need to get on the Peloton, Lee. You're set for the day.
Yeah. No, it was crazy to watch, and it is the advantage, as we've mentioned, when you have Georgia's depth, when you have that kind of talent and that kind of depth, you have fresher legs in the fourth quarter. Ohio State has the same thing. Obviously, their defense is, to me, not as well coached and not as deep and prepared to kick ass for 4 straight quarters, but it's an incredible luxury. And when you're down 14 in the fourth quarter and seemingly don't flinch, seemingly you like the taste of your own blood.
Yeah.
And
crazy,
again,
right?
Very few teams have the ability to do that, but it's so impressive. What did I see it during the World Cup? I saw it somewhere, and I thought it was a great quote. And somebody can probably do a good job with attribution here, because I completely forget all relevant context. But greatness is being in such good shape that when anybody else is tired, that's when maybe it's a Kobe Bryant thing. I don't know. Yeah. That's when you start kicking ass, right? That's who it was. Here's who it was. It was Gino Auriemma, the UConn Huskies.
Knows a thing or two about winning, sure.
Right.
Sure.
So you're in such good shape. and you are so prepared that when somebody just shows an inkling of being a little bit tired in the fourth quarter,
You
late
get
in the
'em.
second half,
You get them.
that's when you go into ass kicking mode. And that's what, Georgia didn't kick their ass, but if you're down 14 that late and you're able to pull it out, that's
No,
ass kicking
it's
mode.
that you've got guts if you can pull that one out. So let's just very briefly here before we
Please.
sign off for the evening. Happy 2023 to those of you watching across the good old internet, US of A, wherever this may find you. Thank you for your support and for tuning in. Make sure you hit follow and subscribe and listen to the show. We'll continue to unpack everything that's transpired here through bowl season. But Gammy Gang over on Twitch saying Georgia opening as a 13-point favorite is kind of crazy, but who knows? So 13's low. I've seen it as high as 15.5. I think it will probably go up over 14 by the time the game actually kicks. That would be my prediction. Well, you know me, I'm not exactly the best when it comes to the point spread, as illustrated by my efforts this past season. However, I don't think I'd want to bet against TCU, Dan. I don't think I'd want to bet against them. And I get the matchup.
Yeah.
There's a lot that Georgia does, maybe more consistently, obviously more consistently than Michigan. They've obviously got a more veteran quarterback who's been there before. They've been on the stage before. And so some of the questions that you might have about Michigan against TCU, those go out the window with Georgia. But TCU is just living an incredible dream right now. This has been so magical, this run. Every time we try to count these guys out, they find a way to shut us up. And maybe not in the Big 12 championship, but beyond that, the effort today, the effort in many times this past season, I think has shown that this is a team that can compete. They're not the kind of team that's going to get blown out by anybody. They've got that style of offense where they can come back quickly. So I don't know if they get 2 pick sixes against Stetson Bennett, but if that line is juiced all the way up to like 15 points,
yep.
I don't know. I don't think I'd want to go against TCU.
I don't feel too bad about going against TCU.
I'm not saying outright, Dan.
No, I understand.
I'm not saying outright, but the point spreads, that's a lot of points.
It's a lot of points, and there are certain things that TCU is able to take advantage of from Michigan that I think are going to be a lot less likely to happen and take advantage of. And that's not to say TCU can't hang in this game, win this game, whatever. It's just going to require more. It's going to require more. And what happens, as we all know, by this point of the season, so this will be game what for these two teams playing in
15?
First round of the playoff. So this will be their 15th game.
Yeah.
It'll be their 15th game. The team that can play 15, 16, 17, 22 games is the team that has the players with the freshest legs. And it's just hard to see TCU having any specific advantage in this game other than the looseness.
Yeah.
But, oh man, I'm excited for this. Frogs and Dawgs. Frogs and Dawgs. Come out to the live show, Solid Verbal Live. If you are a TCU fan, that's going to be in town in LA. If you are a Georgia fan, that's going to make your way to the West Coast, solidverbalive.com. The Saturday night before the national championship game. It really is sort of not a have and have not, but like you have TCU as Texas and Oklahoma move on to the SEC, and then you've got big defending champ Georgia.
Yeah.
There is definitely like maybe not haves and have nots, but like the big fella posting up Muggsy Bogues.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about Ty, you look stoned, John Michael Dassel.
John, yeah, no. The name doesn't have an E, John. It's okay. We're all friends here. No, I'm good. It's just later than usual. And
that's true.
It's been an emotional day, right? We had 2 semifinals that were incredible. And I think everybody here in the comments has agreed. It's been a fun day of college football. And starting earlier, right? We've had our kind of full gamut of college football experiences, from the blowouts early to the weird sort of sicko our Iowa Kentucky game kind of sandwiched in between, and then now the playoff games. So there's more to come. There's more to come. We would encourage everybody to go on out to our website, solidverbal.com. Make sure you hit subscribe. If you're watching this across any of the platforms, please make sure you follow, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss any of our stuff. We've got much more to come. And as Dan said, of course, solidverballive.com. We're going to be out in LA January the 7th. Come out and see us at the Troubadour. It's like a really famous venue. Can't believe they let us in the door at the Troub, but we will be there, and it'll be all sorts of fun as we get you ready for the actual national championship, we'll say.
Actual national championship. Yeah. And thank God we don't have to have a week of Ohio State, Michigan Part 2 talk, Ty. Thank God we do not have a rematch. Although, did Georgia and TCU play in a bowl game in like 2016 or something? I want to say they played in like a very inconsequential bowl game. I don't know if you want to look that up while I just drone on and on, but somebody in the comments can let us know. I believe I saw that somewhere, that they played in a relatively recent bowl game. So you will be out here. When are you coming out here? Are you coming out here Wednesday?
I'm going to be out Wednesday. I'm flying in the 4th.
Okay.
The Liberty Bowl, by the way.
It was the Liberty Bowl. Okay,
bowl that
great.
You're referring to. Yeah, that was a Jacob Eason game.
Oh, wonderful.
31-23. Yeah, I'll be out Wednesday. We've got a fun little project that we're going to work on throughout the day on Thursday.
Yes.
Friday will be prep for the live show, and then Saturday's a big day. And then Sunday I'm off. Sunday I'm back.
All right. Monday morning, bright and early, I'm flying back. We'll do some sort of streaming situation for the national championship game. Cannot wait for the next few days ahead of us. Should be fun. Always glad to have somebody who just hasn't been here. Like TCU was a Mountain West team like a dozen or so years ago. Yeah. And now they're playing for, and they have a case that they felt hosed not playing in the national championship. I think it was 2010 when Oregon got to face Auburn, and TCU beat, I believe, Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl. Was that right? Yep. And then they're left out in 2014 after they're number 3 in the penultimate college football playoff rankings. And then they get jumped by it's Ohio State, is it not? Right? Ohio State ends up in that first playoff. And so now they have that opportunity to get over the hump and burst through the glass ceiling that is the top of the sport. Should be great.
Well, look, we appreciate everybody hanging on with us here again. To those of you who have just rung in the new year, like I have over here on the East Coast, Happy New Year to you. To those who still have it coming, Happy New Year to you as well. Make sure you hit like, follow, subscribe, whatever the button is on the platform you're watching us, so that you don't miss any of our stuff moving forward. We're going to watch the remaining college football games, bowl games, and then record our big old review show, which you again can find at solidverbal.com or really anywhere you get your podcast. But in the meantime, it's been a fun day, Dan. It's always a joy to share this with you. And we've got one big one left.
We have one big one left. We have the ReliaQuest Bowl, the Goodyear.
I mean, that's the one I'm referring to. I don't know if there are other games outside the ReliaQuest Bowl.
Right, Mississippi State, Illinois. But we have Tulane, USC in the Cotton. We have LSU, Purdue in the Cheez-It Citrus.
Okay.
And we still have the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl, Penn State, Utah, January 2nd. That's Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Is that right? 4
5
p.m. Eastern? 5 p.m.? Whatever. Can't wait, Ty. We got a lot to talk about.
Cheers.
Hey,
Happy New Year.
Well. I don't have anything in my hand.
Happy New Year. We will talk to you all soon. Stay solid.
Peace.